Let's discuss sound energy. And our objectives are, we'll do a brief introduction to sound energy, we'll learn about production of sound, that is how sound is being produced. We're going to learn about transmission of sound, that is how sound is being transmitted from one place to another. Reflection of sound, how sound is being reflected. And lastly, we are going to talk about hearing. How do we hear and how does the ear works? Then the introduction, sound is the stimulus that our ears respond to. Now, this sound we are talking about, the ears is a sense organ. The ears is the sense organ, and the ears responds to stimulus. And what do we mean by stimulus? That's one thing or is a thing that makes the ears to be at alert, and sound helps to keep the ears at alert. The ears respond to stimulus. Sound produced by living things is all around us. The birds, goats, sheep, and human beings all produce sound. For instance, the birds, they chirp. That's the sound that birds make. While the goats, they bleat. The sheep, they make baa sound. While human beings, we either listen to music or we hear different sounds around us. When some non-living things, especially metals, vibrate, they produce sound. Now, it's not only living things alone that makes sound or that produces sound. Non-living things as well, especially metals, by the time they vibrate, they also produce some kind of sound. Now, this is the structure of the ear. This part, this is the outer ear. That is to say, the pinna is found on the outer ear. And this is the middle ear. The middle ear, we have the ear canal and the eardrum. Then for the middle ear, we have the ear canal and the eardrum. While for the inner ear, we have the eustachian tubes. And there are also some other organs that are also included in the structure of the ear. As we go along with our study, we'll see the other different parts of the ear. Sound is a form of energy produced by vibrating body. Now, as we all know, sound is a form of energy and is being produced by vibrating bodies. For example, when we strike a turning fork, its prongs vibrate. These vibrations give rise to sound waves. Now, what we are talking about turning fork. The turning fork, we are going to see it in our diagram as we continue, but let me just draw a caricature of how a turning fork looks like. The turning fork looks like this. I'm going to see it as we go along, but I just want us to have a pre-knowledge of how a turning fork looks like. And these are the prongs. These two parts are the prongs. Now, production of sound. Sound is produced by vibrating bodies. The vibrations cause surrounding air to vibrate, also producing a disturbance of the air. This disturbance travels out from the source of vibration in the form of longitudinal waves. Almost any object can vibrate and hence be a source of sound. For example, musical instruments In such instruments, the source is set into vibration by striking, bowing, and blowing. These vibrations produce the sound from these instruments. Now let's take a look at the picture on our screen. You can see this is the source, and the source of the sound is a trumpet. So the sound is the trumpet. Now let's go back to the note. We said that in such instruments, the source, okay, the instrument we are talking about here now is trumpet. And this sound, this trumpet, we blow it. Now let's go back to our picture. Now we can see by the time this trumpet is being blown, it produces some sound, and it's being reflected back to the listener through the ears. The listener is able to get the kind of sound that are being produced by the trumpet. So the ear has to vibrate for the sound to be heard by the person. Now let's go on. We can demonstrate the production of sound in the laboratory using a tuning fork. The tuning fork has two steel prongs which vibrate when struck with a table tennis ball, giving some sound. During the vibration, the prongs of the tuning fork produce a hazy appearance due to their rapid to and fro movement. Now let's see exactly what we are talking about. Remember I said earlier that we are going to see the picture of a tuning fork. Now this is the real picture of how a tuning fork looks like. Now we can demonstrate the production of sound in the laboratory using a tuning fork. The tuning fork has two steel prongs. Now these are the prongs that I earlier mentioned. These are the prongs. These are the prongs. These are the two steel prongs that the tuning fork has, which vibrate when struck with a table tennis ball, giving some sound. Now, this tuning fork has been struck. That is why it's vibrating. All these are vibrations. This is a vibration. This is a vibration that comes out when the tuning fork is being struck. All these are vibrations. You could see it somehow that it has moved to a vibration has occurred at this point. Also, when a rubber ball suspended by a thread is brought near the vibrating prongs, the ball is seen to be immediately kicked aside as shown below. Now let's see what we are talking about. By the time this is the rubber ball, this is the rubber ball. Let's go back. This is the rubber ball suspended by a thread. Now this is the thread at which the rubber ball is being suspended. It's brought near the vibrating prongs. The ball is seen to be immediately kicked aside. Now we see the ball immediately is being, immediately the rubber ball hits the tuning fork, it goes back. The rubber ball goes back and forth. As is shown here that we can see now that the tuning fork is vibrating. All of this shows how the sound or how the ball hits the tuning fork, and these vibrations is being heard with a sense organ called the ears. If the vibrating prongs are dipped into a cup of water, the water is seen to be violently agitated. What we are saying here in essence is that the time the turning fork is vibrating and we dip it into a cup of water, the water is seen to agitate violently. This is exactly what we are talking about. This is the turning fork. These are the turning fork. This is a cup of water. So when the vibrating fork is put into a cup of water, it is agitated. You can see. And what do we mean by agitated? This is disturbed. And we can see the water splashing out of the cup because of the vibrating fork. Transmission of sound. The ripples which we see at the surface of water is called waves. The ripples which you see at the surface of water are called ripples, are called wave. Now, you can see this drop of water. It dropped on this body of water and you can see waves. These are waves. All these are waves. All these are waves. Now let's continue. When a turning fork is struck on a table or another object, the turning fork begins to vibrate in the air. Though we cannot see these air vibrations, however, we can see the waves in water caused by the vibrations of the turning fork, like I earlier showed us. Now let's take a look at what exactly we're talking about. Now we're talking about the transmission of sound even here. Sound is transmitted through matter such as air or water. Now sound can be transmitted through matter such as air and water. The matter through which sound is transmitted is called medium. Now this matter we're talking about has to go through a medium for the sound to be transmitted. Sound is transmitted through a medium. Now I mentioned the word medium. Medium is something like a source. It is to pass by a source. Sound is transmitted through a medium in the form of vibrations or waves, such as the ones you see, such as the ones you saw in water that I earlier showed to us. When the sound waves reach the human ear, the ear can then interpret the sound. So by the time the waves that are being gotten by the sound now, it reaches the ear. That's when we can now interpret to say, okay, that sound that is being made is made by metal. Okay, the sound that we just heard just now has to do with an animal that made the sound, e.g., let's say a goat. So the sound wave, by the time it reaches our ear, we can be able to say, okay, this animal, goat, is the goat that is actually bleating at a particular point in time. So the sound wave, by the time it reaches the ear, it helps the ear to interpret the kind of sound that we are hearing. The manner in which the ear perceives sound will be described later in this study. What we are talking about in essence is that the way we hear or the way the ear works, we are also going to understand that as we go through our study. Now, the reflection of sound. If a sound wave meets an obstacle whose surface is large and hard, it is reflected such that the sound is later heard by the producer of the sound. The sound which is heard after less than a quarter of a second is referred to as echo. The sound that we hear after the main sound is being heard, within the split second or a quarter of a second, there is usually a reflection. So that reflection of the sound that we hear after the main sound has been made is known as echo. And echo is, you can say, is the imitation echo is an imitation or repetition of sound. I'm sure we might have had an experience where, okay, let's say probably in a gathering where there are speakers there, and after the main sound, let's say the sound that is being made is wave. When the main sound is being made and we hear the sound wave, the echo we also say wave. So the echo is just like an imitation. It repeats what the sound that has been initially made. So that's most likely or everything about the reflection of sound. Now let's discuss hearing. The ear is a sense organ that responds to the stimulus of sound. That is, it makes us to hear. So the ear is a sense organ that makes us to hear. The ear makes us hear. The ear is made up of three parts. The outer part consists of the external earlobe and a tube through which sound energy travels. Now, an example of the outer ear, now let me just draw out, this is our ear, this our ear. This part here is the outer ear. This is the outer ear. This is the outer part of the ear. All these parts are the outer ear. As I earlier described earlier, the sound waves cause the bones in the middle ear to vibrate. Now, remember we are talking about how we hear. The sound waves causes the bones in the middle ear. Now, okay, we are going to see that in our picture as we continue. This vibration is detected by nerves in the inner ear, which then sends messages to the brain. Now, by the time these vibrations are being heard in the middle ear, the vibration is detected in the inner ear, which sends messages to the brain. That is to say that sound is being detected in the middle ear. Sound is being detected or interpreted in the middle ear. So the sound, by the time after it's being heard in the inner ear, the time the sound is being heard in the inner ear, it's in tones, in turn sends signals or messages to the brain. Now, the vibration is detected by nerves in the inner ear, which then send messages to the brain. The brain then interprets the messages as sound. Now, after the sound is being detected in the inner ear, it sends messages or it sends signals to the brain. That's when the brain interprets. That's when the brain interprets the message as sound. Okay, now let's take for instance, we are in the school and the bell is being rung. So by the time the bell is being rung, it passes through. Now let's go back to our note. We hear the sound of the bell in the school. The sound enters through the outer part of the ear. So this sound now travels to the middle ear, where the middle ear vibrates. So by the time the vibration is also heard in the inner ear, it sends messages down to the brain, which the brain in turn interprets the kind of sound we have heard. That is to say, that's when we can be able to detect that it is the school bell that is being rung. Different sounds are detected in the brain since they produce different vibrations on the eardrum. Now, the inner ear, this is how the inner ear works, how a sound wave travels through the ear. Now, this is the whole process of how we hear. Now, hearing, number one, hearing begins when the sound waves enter the outer ear and travel to the middle ear. Now this is the outer ear. All these parts, these are the outer ear. So the sound enters, the sound wave enters the outer ear and it travels down to the middle ear. So the sound wave from the outer ear now travels down to the middle ear. Sound waves cause the eardrum to vibrate. So after the sound is gotten in the eardrum, by the time the sound has traveled down to the middle ear where the eardrum is, the eardrum vibrates. The eardrum vibrates. Eardrum vibrates. Three tiny bones, stapes, incus and malleus in the middle ear amplify those vibrations and send them to the inner ear. So there are some tiny bones that are in the middle ear by which the eardrum is there. So now the tiny bones that are called stapes, incus and malleus amplify the vibrations that the outer ear has sent down to the middle ear. Then these vibrations in the middle ear now sends the signals down to the middle ear. 4. Vibrations hit the snail-shaped cochlea. Now this is how the cochlea looks like. Vibrations hit the cochlea, which is lined with sensory. Vibrations hit the small snail's cochlea, which is lined with sensory receptors called hair cells. Now, the cochlea has some lines which consist of sensory receptors called the hair cells. 5. Hair cells move and vibrate in response to sound, triggering the release of neurotransmitters. Now, the hair cells that we earlier mentioned now vibrates when it responds to the sound. So the hair cells triggers the release of these neurotransmitters. Now these neurotransmitters, the word neuro is got from the word nerves. So the nerves in the hair cells now transmit the sound. 6. Electrical signals are sent via the auditory nerve to the brain, which they are interpreted. Now there are some electric signals that is being received or that are sent through the auditory nerve. And this is the auditory nerve. The auditory nerve now sends the electrical signal to the brain, where the sound is being interpreted. So that's how the inner ear works and how sound wave travels through the ear. The ear is a very complicated organ which must be cared for and not abused if it is to function properly. For us to be able to use this complicated organ called the ear, we have to take very good care of our ears and not abuse it. And what do we mean by abuse it? It's very good for us not to listen to sounds that are too loud for our ears. It is an abuse of the ear, listening to very loud noise. We do not all hear equally well. It's not every one of us that hears 100%. So the way I hear things will be different from the way your ear works. This may be due to some damage done to the ear as a result of abuse. Now, this abuse of the ear is actually causes some damage to the ear. The way I use my ear, okay, let's take for instance, I don't listen to sound music and you listen to sound music. The sound music that we are exposed to can cause some sort of damage to the ear. So the way I hear and the way you hear will be totally different. Some people don't even hear at all. They are said to be deaf. So, but for the fact that we don't all equally hear well, there are some people who don't even hear at all. There are some people who were born deaf. So those people that don't hear at all are actually called deaf. And now we've come to an end of the study on sound energy.